expecting you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last video in this trilogy, if you will, I talked about my midterm presentation for philosophy, which I connected Detroit Become Human and Aristotle's Four Causes to make an elaborate connection. And to give a little summary of the outline that he wanted for that midterm presentation, taking a course concept and taking a concept outside of the course, explaining both of those, and then giving an elaborate connection between the two. Furthermore, after that, connecting it to society and us. Now, culminating's work a little bit different. You still have to take a course concept and explain that, and you still have to take a concept outside the course and explain that. But now, somewhere in your elaborate connection, he wishes for a symbol to help further explain your ideas. And once again, much like last time, this was written entirely by me, and I will point out if I got information from other sources, like the site or Social Dilemma, like I did last time. But I got no help from parents, no help from Grammarly, Word, nothing like that. This is all written by me, typed out in an hour, actually. I typed this out in an hour while watching TV. Nevertheless, this one isn't so much... This one's probably the most different of the three of them. This one can probably be argued the most, I'd say, the three of them, so maybe this one. If the other one didn't make you think, and you're still here trying to hope that I'll give you one that makes you think, maybe this one will make you think. But yes, so this is my religion culminating, and although out of the three that I will be showing you, I presented this one last in class, I'm presenting this one next, so that way there's a break in between the two philosophy ones. So sequentially, this one's last, but in terms of how I'm recording them, this one is second. Nevertheless, my religion culminating, another one that Byron loved. His actual reply was, "God damn," when I finished reading it to him, so that's any constellation. My religion culminating is what is good, focused on my school's way of religion, which is like Christianity. Today, whilst it is my turn to speak, I wish to ponder the question about what good is. Is there such thing as good? If so, where does it lie? I shall be connecting this to Avengers Age of Ultron to answer said question, so let us commence. Good, according to slideshow 6, is anything and everything that exists. This is due to the fact that God created everything that exists, and God is good to an infinite degree. Which also implies that by extension, evil is the lack of what should exist, the absence of good. As Romans 8:28 states, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. End quote. In non-religious terms, Google defines good as both an adjective and a noun. Good can either mean to be desired or approved of, or having the qualities required for a particular role. However, it also means that which is morally right, righteousness, and the benefit or advantage to someone or something. That is already 5 separate definitions for a 4-letter word, not to mention those who decided it would be a good idea to make up their own definitions like Aristotle, whom holds the term eudaimonia, which is the highest human good, the only human good that is desirable for its own sake, as an end in itself, rather than for the sake of something else, as a means towards some other end. So it is quite clear that we truly do not know what good is for sure. What we can ultimately agree upon is that good is something rather positive, given how each definition portrays it, something beneficial. Something we have been taught from the very beginning to desire and aim for, even if schools rather teach you how to work in a society that doesn't care about you rather than how to be happy. the problems of today's society. The more that time flies, the harder it gets to define good. We grow more and more diverse each day as everyone strives to be different and unique. I am sure each one of us has a separate term for good, a different way to describe it, a shift from everyone else's perspective. In its own way, defining good is like admiring a tree. The trunk would be the general concept of good. The branches imply all those that good impacts. The minute we begin peeling away the layers of good like an onion, we must also get into laws, justice, free will, rights, choice, and so many other things we also struggle to explain because of differing viewpoints. However, let's keep that train of thought in mind for a second while I speak on the second Avengers movie. Avengers Age of Ultron is arguably the worst of the 4 Avengers movies currently within the MCU, despite being my favorite. The reason I chose this particular movie was because of the opposing ideas of good that exist in it. Both the Avengers themselves and Ultron, the villain, have differing points of view on what is good. The Avengers in some way confuse good with just. They band together to stop the evils of this world from overtaking hope. They are a team of elite people who stand up for what they believe in, as well as a common belief about peace in the world which they try to push for. However, are they good? For all the noble things that they do and all the lives that they save, there is damage to people's health, living status, and societies. The Avengers have the intention of a good, but not everything. But intention is not everything, and this is addressed in another MCU film, Captain America: Civil War. Vision is an artificial intelligence created by the combined genius of Tony Stark, Iron Man, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and Ultron himself. I know, that might be a tad confusing for some of you who have not watched the movie, but just bear with me. Vision is responsible for some of the most hard-hitting and memorable quotes in the MCU, and there's a particular one I wish to retell. Within Civil War, the Avengers are divided amongst signing the Sokovia Accords, which were laws and legislation submitting the Avengers to the government to minimize harm and to be used only when the threat creates a necessity for the Avengers. To which, in the process of debating this, Vision speaks up with, "I have an equation." Someone else interjects with, "Oh, this will clear it up." And Vision continues with, "In the 8 years since Mr. Stark announced himself as Iron Man, the number of known enhanced persons has grown exponentially. During that same period, the number of potentially world-ending events has risen at a commensurate rate." To which someone else responds with, "Are you saying it's our fault?" And he replies with, "I'm saying there may be a causality. Our very strength invites challenge, challenge incites conflict, and conflict breeds catastrophe." Oversight. Oversight is not an idea that can be dismissed out of hand. Ultron had similar thoughts to this. His whole concept when being created was to be an instrument of peace, to save the world the way that the Avengers could not, and by extension, after they're dead. He was created to bring peace. However, once Ultron awoke and studied the task he had been assigned, he realized that the cause of several issues was that of the Avengers. So he spends the rest of the film trying to enact what he calls the Avengers' extinction. In case you needed more context, here's one of his quotes. "I'm sorry. I know you mean well. You just didn't think it through. You want to protect the world, but you don't want it to change. How is humanity saved if it's not allowed to evolve? With these puppets, there's only one path to peace, the Avengers' extinction." Ultron had full intent to kill humanity, fascinated with meteors because, as we should all very well know, we humans are our own worst enemy. Another quote from him is, "I wasn't sure you'd wake up. I hoped you would. I wanted to show you I don't have anyone else. I think a lot about meteors, the purity of them. Boom, the end, start again. The world made new The world made clean for the new man to rebuild. I was meant to be new. I was meant to be beautiful. The world would have looked to the sky and seen hope, seen mercy, instead they'll look up in horror because of you. You wounded me." To which he continues after a few lines of dialogue with, "Do you see the beauty of it, the inevitability? You rise only to fall. You, Avengers, you are my meteor, my swift and terrible sword, and the earth will crack with the weight of your failure. Purge me from your computers, turn my own flesh against me. It means nothing. When the dust settles, the only thing living in this world will be metal." He sees what he's doing as good because he's eradicating the biggest threat to the world, much like the Avengers try to do good by defending their beliefs and the world from harm. So how does this correlate? Well, you are smart people and I'm sure you figured it out by now, but alas, I shall continue to explain as if you do not. Firstly, my symbol is the peace sign, which is the circle with the upside down Y, or just the two fingers up in the air. I don't want anyone here to confuse peace with quiet, because it's truly not. However, it is a silent harmony that we all enjoy. Peace is minimal to no conflict. It is the mutual respect between different individuals, striding for a world they can enjoy without fighting. Often when people think of peace, they think of war. Wars are fought over peace. It is that valuable. The Avengers fight a war on evil for the sake of peace. Ultron fights a war against humanity for the sake of peace. And every day we all take peace we have for granted. Yet we see peace as a good thing, because it is something we desire. Even though conflict is constantly created through demands for peace. We strive for it, much like we strive for whatever good is. It is a hope of the people that we can obtain something that we cannot truly understand. And at the end of the day, had they existed in the real world, the Avengers would still be human like us. That does not change. So who's to say that they know good any better than we do? Are they still enforcing good? Would God have wanted this? I'm sure he would not agree with what Ultron was doing, but at the same time, would he have been pleased by the Avengers trying to play God with evil and when it is allowed to rise? Would he permit them to carry out such actions, violence and fighting, all for a temporary state of pleasure and heroism? As you can see, my culminating cannot come to a definitive conclusion, but is more so a debate, something to get people thinking, much like the definition of good or religion as a whole. This connection is open-ended. Either way, most of humanity operates under their assumption of what good is, whether that is good for themselves or good for a collective whole. As already mentioned, everyone has a separate perception of good. So is Ultron truly wrong in his actions? Are the Avengers truly right? Sure, God may have appointed the Ten Commandments, but like I said with peeling away the layers of good, who's to say that laws are good? If we get into laws, we have to determine what justice is. Who is right to have the power to enforce law? It is all questions. And that's my connection, in case you failed to notice. A series of questions in a spiral going further and further to make you ponder the not-so-black and white world we live in. Now that I have not so seamlessly bled into connecting this to us, allow me to potentially puzzle you a few more times. I suppose it goes without saying that the closest thing we have to the Avengers in our lovely society is the police force. Assuming they are not dirty or racist, which is growing rarer as time goes on, we usually consider these individuals good. Not because they are better than us, but because they band together over a common belief that demands they uphold the law, which is what they believe in, protecting the world from crime and evil. Without getting repetitive, I could once again ask if they are upholding the right kind of justice. I could beg the question if they, I could beg the question of if they deserve to uphold the law at all. The same could be said about judges. The same could be said about all of you. You all believe that what you do is right, or at least I assume that you believe that some action, minor or major, that you perform sometime within the 24-hour time span of the day is right. I'm sure that most of you believe that you are good, or at least try to be. Some of you may go to church, some of you don't. Does that make one of you better than the other? To what extent do the actions you commit make you good or bad? Take school. If a teacher does not assign an exam, I'm sure some of you begin to see said teacher very highly, especially in contrast to those that assign an exam. I know a few people like that anyway, maybe not you guys. Another example I did not include in this, but I was thinking about the whole time, was the concept of superhero movies. In superhero movies, police forces and whatnot, an example actually, the second episode of Miss Marvel, which hadn't come out yet when I wrote this. But in the superhero genre, usually the police force are deemed bad because they're doing their job and because they're against the protagonist. Cops in the military trying to lock up Superman because they don't understand him. The people who went after Miss Marvel in the second episode of Miss Marvel. Police forces in general. Usually, they are frowned upon, simply because they go against our protagonist. But does that mean that the police force is bad? Because the Avengers are good. The reason I have heard some people like certain movies over others is simply because one is funnier than the other. I liked Morbius, and that is not a joke. I'm not playing on the memes of the internet. I actually genuinely liked Morbius. And I liked the 2016 Suicide Squad. Both of these movies, people deemed horrible. Most people, anyway. But does that make them bad? Does that make me worse than others simply by enjoying films/media that others of a majority opinion did not? At what point does good become preference? Blinded by bias, tricking ourselves or others simply because we made a choice to accept something. If good and entertainment were the same, I highly doubt we would have two words for it. Is following God any better than following any other religion? Is reading the Bible any better than praying a fraction of the rosary? What aspects of something like religion constitute following the correct path over others? I know I just keep listing questions, but these are the type of questions that are kind that need to be applied and can be applied to any aspect of society. Jobs, responses to situations, actions, the very culmination of our beings. I leave you not with a connection like most other presentations, but a connection left with the sole intent of making you think. A concept that can stand the test of time, the concept of good, because in our hearts, that is all we wish to be. And there you go. That was my religion culminating performance, I guess you can say. In a way, these are kind of like my philosophy and religion versions of my drama performances, but just not that. Nevertheless, this presentation got me a 95% in religion. Only things that he wished for me to improve afterwards was more of a definitive connection to our society. So like a higher, use of application. And also maybe a bit more relation to the course, because all I did explain was slideshow 6. But yeah, this got me a 95. And this was presented the most recent out of the trilogy that I will be giving to you. Nevertheless, this one, like I said, was made by me in the span of an hour while watching TV. And I was actually pretty pleased about this one. But I'll share with you a little story, because this was not actually the first one I did. I had a hard time starting up my religion one, because philosophy I found very easy, philosophy, it was very definitive in the sense that, you picked a philosopher and they had these ideas. Great. You connect that to something you know. Easy. That would be easy because generally it's just making you think, and it's something we can all understand. The problem I had with religion and trying to make a connection with that is the fact that it is so open-ended. It is so, dependent on faith and what you choose to believe, more so than, people who actually existed, humans that died and shared their thoughts with society. And, clearly I played very well in that. But I struggled for a long time to get started with my religion culminating because I just didn't know what to pick. I didn't know what to do. And so initially, my first religion culminating script, which I've thrown out. I'm not going to show it to you guys because it's horrible. I never presented it to anybody, and I knew it was bad from the minute I started writing it. But then I finished writing it, wasn't happy, so I went back the next day and wrote more. which ended up being this. But my initial religion culminating was proving that God created evil. And sure, some of you are probably like, well, yeah, of course he did. But the main reason I did that was because our course in religion, SJC, grade 12, one of the slideshows in my class, because there was 22 slideshows that he gave us. One of the slideshows argued that God did not create evil, as I kind of, slideshow 6 again. Because God created everything that good and evil is not good. Therefore, evil is a lack of good that should exist. It is the absence of good. And so God did not create evil. And so that draft, I was going to argue that God created evil to balance out society. Because if there was no evil, then humans would be inherently flawed. And if there was no evil, then then Earth would just be a glorified version of heaven. There would be no real benefit to going up to heaven aside from being able to see God in them. Because Earth would just be the same. Just without God. And I forget what the thing I connected that with was. I don't quite remember. I do know that my symbol was a scale. But yeah, so as you can see, I took ideas from that. I took the concept of what good is, and instead of putting a definitive label on it, I wanted to make people question it, and that spawned this. So hopefully that gives a bit of context into the thought process I had going into it. And yeah, so on another note, I hope, well actually I really don't care if you think less of me or not, but yeah, I wonder if any of you found it a shock that I liked Morbius. I mean, I know a lot of people in the comments will joke about liking Morbius even though no one did, and it got 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. I actually did. I genuinely liked Morbius, and I liked the 2016 Suicide Squad film. I watched it God knows how many times. Me and my family really liked it. I don't know. That's just me. But, yeah. So, that was my religion culminating. We got one more to go. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I'm Ezra Silver, like, comment, subscribe for this. More gamer vlogs, whatever else comes. I'll see you all very, very soon. Later, guys.